Hey, my name is Joshua Cantrell. I'm 23 years old from Greenville, South Carolina, and this is my story. So I grew up in Hendersonville, North Carolina, really enriched in Southern culture and tradition, beautiful green mountains. And despite the beauty that I was surrounded with, there was something quite different going on in my home life. My father was in ministry. He did some teaching stuff. He was also doing a side job as a youth counselor. My mother was unfortunately anorexic, bulimic, dealing with a lot of trauma and spiritual issues and mental issues in her own life. There was a lot of fighting, a lot of chaos, a lot of screaming, just a lot of strife in my home from an early age. And I quickly developed this mentality of survival, of just wanting to get through a day, of having peace and normalcy in my life. I didn't grow up like other boys. I loved the arts. I loved music. I didn't like your Tonka trucks or sports or that kind of thing. It just wasn't me. And so from an early age, I definitely developed some issues with my gender identity and some confusion as to why I wasn't like everyone else. For birthdays and Christmases, my mom would get me things like a dollhouse bed, Ken dolls, cleaning supplies, which just kind of threw fuel to the fire of what was going on. My father was gone a lot working, and I quickly developed this abandonment issue towards him of feeling like, where are you when I need you? Because it was when he was gone that my mother would project a lot of that anger and strife onto me, and at points be physically abusive towards me. And that was really hard to deal with because I just wanted her to love me. I didn't feel very loved by her at an early age. We moved to South Carolina. There was a ministry in South Carolina that offered to give us help for our family. So we moved to South Carolina, didn't have any money, really struggled financially. The strife came with us, and so that continued. It was at that point that I really started experimenting into this life of homosexuality and really started exploring my gender identity. Also, I was very rebellious at that time in my life. That's when I started really becoming rebellious towards authority, towards my father in particular. My dad at this point had apologized and repented for not being around and was trying to do the best that he could to make up for that. But I didn't want to hear it. To me, the damage had already been done. I was already bitter. I was already angry. And so I really started developing this sense of survival, this dog-eat-dog mentality. I became manipulative. I became a compulsive liar. I became hateful towards him and any authority in my life. I became lazy. I didn't want to do anything. And all of that just pushed me to this path of destruction. And on one hand, I was the kid that was in church leading worship, singing, dancing before the Lord, and everybody thought I was going to be the next great pastor and that I was going to be the next big spiritual thing to kind of hit the church scene. And on the other hand, here I am living this lifestyle of homosexuality and sleeping around and partying and drinking and all of the stuff in my high school years. And my senior year of high school is kind of when everything came to a head. The night before my senior year of high school, everything blew up between me and my father. My father and mother had been divorced at this point, and I took a lot of that responsibility onto myself. I felt very distant from my mom, still very angry towards my father. And I still can't, to this day, tell you what we fought about. But it was just all that pent-up anger came streaming out like a volcano. It just erupted everywhere. And I left the house, didn't want to come back. First couple nights, ended up staying with a friend of mine, having no clue where I was going to sleep, where I was going to go. And then my course teacher heard about my situation and took me in. And her husband just gave me all the love and the care in the world, and were so phenomenal towards me. And the first night that I was living in her house, I was sitting upstairs in her computer room, and everything in me was crying out to God. And I said, God, something has got to change. I can't do this. Everybody at that point told me there was no way I was going to be able to graduate high school on time, that I probably wouldn't be a lot in life. People had told me that too. And I was just crying out to God, and I said, God, I can't do this. Here I am. I don't know how I'm going to graduate. I'm living this lifestyle of homosexuality. I feel shameful. I feel guilty. I feel disgusted with myself. And it was at that moment of crying out to God that this hand came on my left shoulder. And my shoulder went down from the weight of the hand. And I looked up really quickly because I was startled because I thought it was the course teacher or her husband. Nobody was in the room. And I heard the voice of God speak to me. And he said, it's going to be okay. And the supernatural peace hit the room. And you see, in our world, peace is the absence of something. It's the absence of violence or war or chaos. And we don't have those things. We call that peace. In God's world, peace is the presence of someone. It's the presence of Jesus. So when Jesus walked into the situation, peace hit. And I knew God had spoken. And he said it was going to be okay. Shortly after that, a friend of mine invited me to church. And I went with him because I was very familiar with church. And the pastor was talking about the sacrifice of Jesus, talking about the gospel. And he said how Jesus was the propitiation for our sins. And he explained that propitiation meant wrath-bearing substitute. And how Jesus took on all of that for us. And then he said Jesus, not only did he bore our sin, but he bore our shame. And everything up to that point in my life had been shame-driven. And in that moment when I realized that Jesus looked at me and he said, that is my son. He is holy, he is righteous, he is blameless. All of that shame and guilt just started melting away in his presence. And I didn't feel so disgusting anymore. I felt like I could approach him. And up until that point in my life, I just wanted to be happy. But I realized this was about more than just happiness. This was about joy. And nobody could steal that from me. I just wanted to survive. It was no longer about surviving. Jesus said, I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly. I was given life and I was given it abundantly. Since then, God has just completely restored me and is continually restoring me out of that lifestyle of homosexuality. The shame and the guilt has disappeared. Graduated high school, went to North Greenville University, the most incredible growing experience in my life, of God just providing community and so many friends who I still have to this day who walked with me and who helped me grow with God and who were my brothers and sisters who I love. And my father and me went through this complete restoration process. Now we are best friends. Love my dad so much. He's the voice of counsel to me and my prayer partner. My mother has been restored and is continually being restored by God, and we're walking in right relationship with each other and really just having a mending together. And I love my mother, talk with her often. Came out here and served with Interface last summer, met Pastor James, and then they offered me a way to be able to come out here to San Francisco and do ministry with them. So I took them up on that offer, and now get to lead worship with Interface. I love this church so much. It is the church that has walked with me. It's the first church that has discipled me, encouraged me, prayed with me, loved me just as I am, where I'm at, and believing and seeing who I can be. And I am just thankful. Words cannot describe my love for InterfaceSF and how God has used them to change my life, and how I am so privileged and blessed to be in the city of San Francisco to minister to the hurt, to minister to the homosexual community, to minister to the lost and the broken. And just remember, there's one thing I can leave you with. It is He restores all things lost, all things broken, and all things destroyed. Thanks.